The room was silent, except for the steady beep of the heart monitor. Nia's hand rested over the fresh scar on her side. She wasn't angry, not anymore. She looked at Mrs. Wilson, unconscious, fragile, and for a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. Morning, Nia entered the grand gates of the Wilson mansion, knowing that the day ahead would be long, exhausting, and often cruel. She carried not just laundry or dishes, but the weight of being unseen, unheard, and undervalued. Yet, even in those moments of hardship, she whispered small prayers, asking for strength and patience. Nia worked tirelessly, preparing meals she would rarely taste. The woman who owned the mansion, Mrs. Wilson, often left scraps on her plate as if feeding her was a punishment. Nia ate quietly, swallowing both food and humiliation, and kept her prayers close to her heart. Each day was a test of endurance, but one she faced with quiet resilience. Daniel, Mrs. Wilson's teenage son, often watched these moments in silence. He hated the way Nia was treated, every cruel word and cold glance cutting him like a knife. But he was only a boy, and the fear of confronting his mother kept his voice locked in his chest. All he could do was watch and quietly wish for things to be different. At night, in the quiet of her small room, Nia prayed. Not for recognition, not for reward, but for courage to endure another day. She prayed for strength to remain kind in a world that often demanded cruelty, and for the patience to survive with dignity intact. One evening, after preparing a lavish dinner, Nia tried to take a small taste of her own work. Mrs. Wilson noticed immediately. "Even feeding you is a waste," she said sharply. Nia swallowed her shame, whispered a silent prayer, and moved away. The mansion's walls gleamed with wealth, but not a single corner held compassion. Despite the insults, despite the invisibility, Nia endured. Each task, each command, each humiliation, she faced with quiet strength. She knew that her value was not defined by how others treated her, but by the steadfastness of her own heart. The mansion was beautiful, but behind its grandeur lived cruelty. Nia survived each day through faith and resilience, but a turning point was coming. One evening, a moment that would change her life and the lives of everyone in the house forever. And when that moment arrived, nothing would ever be the same. That evening, the grand dining room of the Wilson mansion became a place of panic. Mrs. Wilson, who had spent years commanding with harshness, suddenly collapsed. Nia was the first to reach her side, steadying her frail body while Daniel froze, unable to act. In that moment, the world shifted. The quiet cruelty of the mansion had been replaced by something far more urgent: survival. Paramedics arrived within minutes, rushing Mrs. Wilson to the hospital. Nia followed closely, her hands steady, her heart heavy. Daniel rode in silence, the weight of helplessness pressing down on him. For the first time, the power dynamics of the mansion felt insignificant. Life itself had become fragile. In the hospital, the urgency was palpable. Doctors examined Mrs. Wilson, monitoring her failing kidneys. It was a situation no one expected, a life hanging by a thread. And then came the test that would change everything: a search for a compatible kidney. The test results arrived. Nia was a perfect match. The same hands that had been ignored, the same body that had endured years of hardship, could now save the life of the woman who had caused her pain. Silence filled the room. Daniel's eyes widened. Mrs. Wilson's face remained pale and weak, unaware of the gravity of what was about to unfold. Nia faced a choice no one could have imagined. She could refuse, or she could give. Years of injustice, humiliation, and silent suffering could have justified anger or resentment. Yet, in her heart, she chose compassion. Not for reward, not for recognition, but because saving a life was always the right thing to do. The surgery began. Nia, steady and composed, entered the operating room. Each step was measured, each breath deliberate. The very same hands that had served, scrubbed, and cleaned the mansion were now offering a gift beyond measure, a chance at life. Hours passed as the surgery unfolded. Every movement is precise, every second crucial. In the quiet intensity of the room, Nia's gift became a bridge, turning years of pain into a chance for life. When the operation ended, both survived. Mrs. Wilson awoke, fragile but alive. Nia, exhausted yet serene, had given a part of herself that no one could repay. Daniel watched quietly, witnessing a grace he had never expected. And for the first time, the walls of the mansion seemed smaller than the heart that had just transformed. She whispered, tears trembling on her cheeks. "I am so sorry for everything." Years of neglect, harsh words, and cruelty now met the quiet dignity of someone who had already forgiven, not for her sake, but because it was Nia's nature to rise above bitterness. Nia nodded gently, her eyes steady. She did not speak of revenge, nor demand apologies beyond those already offered. She had given her kidney, yes, but more importantly, she had shown the power of strength, compassion, and forgiveness. In that moment, Nia reclaimed her dignity, not as a reaction to cruelty, but as a statement of her own unbreakable spirit. A few days later, Nia walked out of the hospital. Each step was quiet, deliberate, filled with the confidence of someone who had endured, who had given, and who had survived with grace. Daniel watched, understanding now that true strength was not in anger or in control, but in the choices one made, even when wronged. Mrs. Wilson remained behind for a moment longer, reflecting on everything she had taken for granted. The luxury of her home, the control she had exercised, and the cruelty she had shown suddenly felt hollow. Nia's act had given her more than a second chance at life. It had given her a second chance at humanity. Outside the hospital, Nia paused for a moment of quiet reflection. She bowed her head in prayer, giving thanks not for recognition, but for strength, for courage, and for the chance to turn hardship into hope. Faith had carried her this far, and now it would carry her forward into a life she fully owned. Nia's journey was a reminder that even in a world that may underestimate you, there is power in patience, strength in forgiveness, and freedom in compassion. She chose herself. She chose life, and in doing so, she became a beacon of hope for anyone who has ever been silenced, overlooked, or undervalued. Sometimes, the greatest acts of courage are the quietest, but they echo forever. Subscribe if the story of Nia touched your heart.